everybody, welcome to Orchard Online. My name is Russ. Orchard Online is the online experience of the Orchard Church. We're a family of churches that exist to grow deep in the love of Jesus and branch out to others with that love. And we have a pretty regular routine here at Orchard Online where you would hear from different pastors and hear a song. A couple weeks ago, we had an interview with someone who's just an incredible person. And instead of doing a sermon on this passage in Ezra that's about suffering and how you come up off the mat when you go through suffering, we felt like this woman's story resonated so deeply. And so instead of hearing a pastor preach on a text, you're going to hear this woman talk about her story and what God has done in her life and is doing in her life right now. So we thought that would speak in a completely different way, but in a totally powerful way. So that's what we got for you guys today. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you enjoy your time. One of the things we do pretty regularly is talk to people who are associated with our different campuses and see what's going on in their life and what God is doing in their life. Today we have Liz. Dabney is your last name?
Yes. Well, that's my married name.
Gotcha.
Rainey is
Gotcha.
my maiden name.
Gotcha. Tell us a little bit about yourself, sort of where you're from, how you got connected to the Orchard in the first place.
Yeah. I'm from Jackson, Mississippi. I came to college here in 2003 and then graduated in 2007. And I think at my senior year is when they first started having the Orchard meetings here at the Powerhouse. Does that sound right? I know that
Yes.
I call it first college and second college because I actually came back to college again.
Yeah. So I moved here in 2006. Took the job of the guy who planted the Orchard Oxford.
Okay,
in Tupelo. So
yeah.
that was 2006. Yeah,
All right, so I started going to those because at that point I think it was affiliated maybe with the Methodist Church. Mm-hmm. I grew up in the Methodist Church, so I knew about it from Tupelo. And I went there, then I graduated and moved to Austin, Texas. I spent a little time in Uganda, came back for second college with the intention of going to medical school. But I had not taken any like the pre-med classes. Mm-hmm. So I came back to do that and spent another 2 or 3 years here. Started attending the Orchard here, all of the funeral homes that we inhabited throughout the last couple of years. Yeah.
Yep. That's what they do, bounce around the funeral
I've
homes.
been to all of them. So that's how I got started. I've been here since the beginning.
Gotcha.
Orchard Oxford.
Nice. And you work here at Big Bad Breakfast in Oxford, right?
Yeah, so when I came back for second college, BBB was open. I was looking for a part-time job, and they had maybe something in the newspaper, and I came and I dropped off my resume, and by the time I drove out of the parking lot, John called, or I think he told Jill to call me and hire me. So I was like, oh, okay, well that's like the easiest job ever.
Right.
But I never served a table before, like ever in my life. And they taught me everything about it, and then about a year later, where we are right now, which is Snack Bar, opened. And so I started working between both of them, and I've worked 1 or 2 shifts a week, sometimes more, for the last, how long have we been open? 12, 13 years now, between these 2 restaurants. And now I'm the general manager at Big Bad Breakfast.
This is my family's, all of our favorite place to come eat here. The kids like breakfast.
Good.
My wife likes it here. So
Yeah, I love it too.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about what's going on in your life right now. You've had a sort of a whirlwind lately.
Yes, I have. So on January the 14th, I found a lump in my breast, left breast, and I had done like the self-exams like they recommend to do. I don't think I knew that you were supposed to do them once a month or maybe more frequently. But my grandmother had breast cancer when I was in college in 2004, I think. And so I was cognizant of checking and making sure that I wasn't missing anything. And in fact, I'd had a doctor's appointment 6 months before. Well, it's been more than 6 months now, but I'd had a doctor's appointment 6 months before I found it because I thought that I had felt something. And I know that I had checked a couple of times in between, but this was like totally different. It seemed to come out of nowhere, and it was about 2 centimeters, the size of it. So I called my OBGYN the next day, and because I'd had a recent exam, they sent me for a mammogram the next Monday. And then I could tell by the technician that was doing the mammogram that something was wrong. And she told me that, we may want to stay a little bit longer and might have you do an ultrasound. So I had Googled like all the images and stuff and like what to look for on an ultrasound. I shouldn't have done that, but I did. And I could see the ultrasound when they were doing it, and I knew that it wasn't right. Irregular edges and not completely black and all the things that you want to see. And I could also tell by her expression that she saw something wrong. And they had me repeat another mammogram, and then called that afternoon, or maybe told me while I was there, it kind of runs together, that they wanted to do a biopsy. That was 2 days later on a Wednesday, and then on Friday the 22nd, I was working here, and I saw the phone call, knowing it was a doctor's office, and I took the call in the office, and they called to tell me that I had breast cancer. It's called invasive ductal cell carcinoma. It's the most common type of breast cancer, and initially they thought it was stage 1, which is what everybody hopes for, which means it hasn't spread yet. And I had several exams. I went to see an oncologist and 2 surgeons in Jackson, and they'll feel your lymph nodes to see if you have lymph node involvements, because that's the first place that it spreads when you have breast cancer. And they didn't notice any lymph node involvement that they could palpate. I couldn't palpate it. I didn't feel sore under my arm like you might see. And I was scheduled to have a double mastectomy and later like breast reconstruction, and they were going to do chemo in between, and that's kind of like the commonplace program for someone that's under 50, premenopausal, and has breast cancer. They want to be as aggressive as possible to make sure it doesn't come back. So they want to remove all the breast tissue, and then chemo is to kill every microscopic cell that's left in your body. I'm just going to kind of give an education lesson if that's okay. And my doctor wanted to order a PET scan just to make sure. And PET scan was on February the 5th. And she called on the 8th to tell me that they had found that it had metastasized to 2 lymph nodes. An axial node, which is under my arm, a subpectoral node, which is under the pectoral muscle, and most concerningly that I had multiple lesions on my liver. And at first we thought, well, maybe it's just a fluke. Like I was alcoholic for 12 years of my life. I've been sober since 2018, but I never thought I would hope for cirrhosis, but that's what we were hoping for. And it can show up on a PET scan that way. So she told me it was about a 50-50 chance. So we did an MRI to repeat it or to just confirm that. And MRI showed that it was most likely metastatic lesions from breast cancer. And so what that means is it changes my diagnosis from stage 1 to stage 4, which is the worst kind of cancer in the grading scale of breast cancer. And it's also considered a terminal illness because it's not curative. They can treat you, and they can give you the best quality of life. They can extend your life for as long as possible and hope that new treatments come out, which they are right now. They come out every, couple of months, really. They're always making more progress, but I think the life expectancy for it is 22% survival past 5 years. So I try not to put a number on it, but just to kind of gauge what I'm facing and to help my family through it and my friends understand what's going on. I have to be realistic about it too. So that's what I'm looking at. My whole treatment plan has changed, and I have been seeing a specialist at MD Anderson in Houston. And instead of doing chemo and surgeries, which are harmful to the body, it's toxic and can cause a lot of long-term problems. And surgery is an invasive procedure that's kind of unnecessary because it's you're just removing one small part of the problem when it's already spread everywhere. So if it's spread to my liver, you can safely assume that it's already in my bloodstream and in my lymph system, and it's just waiting to like attach to something else and invite all of its friends to hang out and show up on scans. So I will, I just started it today. Actually, I will have an injection once a month, and I take 2 pills. It's called my first line of treatment, and we'll take those for as long as they work, repeat scans every 3 months, and hope for no progression. What our goal is just to see that everything's still the same. May see some improvement, but if something happens and it progresses, then they'll just change me to a different medicine.
Yeah.
Sorry, that was really long.
No, that's totally okay. We're going to talk about how this impacts your faith in a little bit, but I'm just curious, like, what are you going through sort of emotionally when all this is kind of happening?
Oh, well.
I mean, I know it may be even hard to like remember because everything's so fast.
Yeah, you're right. I hadn't even thought about that. It is hard to remember. Well, I guess it just depends. It's a roller coaster for sure. And it depends on who I'm around, because if I'm at work, I can't really lose it, you know. And then being around like my parents and grandparents, try to be strong for them. And some people just aren't ready to accept that it's a terminal illness. And I understand that. I get it. I'd be the same way if it was them and I was the caregiver. But I have to do a little bit of burying my feelings here and there, and I let them out occasionally. A lot of times I listen to worship music when I'm getting ready, and that's like my time to feel everything, to be honest. So I told you I found the tumor on January the 14th. The 15th I called my OBGYN, called him here, I was working, and they called back to schedule a mammogram. As soon as they called back, it was the end of the day. And I was so overwhelmed with anxiety that I just couldn't keep myself from crying. And I don't like to cry in public. I don't want to show any feelings. So, well, I do when I sing, but otherwise, no. So I text Alex to see if the church was open, although I didn't think it was because it was a Friday afternoon. I'm sure they were all gone. So I drove over to the Orchard because I just wanted to be at my church. It's the only place I wanted to be. And I sat in the parking lot and I played some worship songs, and the Lord just spoke this into me. I mean, he told me what was going to happen. So I think I would be more upset had he not warned me, but he told me how it was going to play out. He told me this is what it's going to be. It's going to be cancer. It's going to be bad. He didn't tell me how bad, but that's okay. I understand what it's going to be like now. But what he did say, what he promised, was that it was going to help a lot of people. And it was going to save a lot of lives on the other side. So I trust that. I know that he's already used it to help people, to awaken them to their health risk. A lot of people my age that have never had a physical. I'm 36, and that's kind of the age you need to start checking things out, if not earlier. So the way it has affected my faith has strengthened it in a lot of ways. I have not had any doubt that he's with me, not at all. Oop, I'm gonna cry. And even when I do, he reminds me of things like he just sends people, strangers, that have a kind word of encouragement. Or like this one lady, the moment that I was going to MD Anderson, and which is like the Disney World of hospitals and a big maze, I didn't know where I was going, and she just came out of the blue and was like, "Are you new here? Okay, I'm going to take you where you need to go." And so she took me up to my floor where my appointment was, where hers was not. She was on another wing, and prayed for me right before my very first appointment there. There's no way to like deny it, that it's God taking care of me. And I've learned some hard lessons from it about I'm not in control of my life, which was definitely a character defect at that time. Has been. I'm sure for all of us from time to time, me more than others. And I've learned to release control over just stupid things that don't matter. And to live every day with intention, which I've always tried to do, but even more so now.
Yeah. Hones it in a little more.
Yeah.
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 When you may not be able to describe this a little bit, but I go back to that day in the car. You're outside the place. You say that God like spoke to you.
Yes.
Like, was it? I'm kind of curious. People say that sometimes.
What do you say?
Yeah. Was it almost like an audible voice, or was it just this overall sense of like a calm, or I don't know. Yeah.
It's like that's happened to me several times in my life, actually. Most times at the orchard, and it is a calm, but it's also a message that is like I don't hear like a booming voice, but I hear the whole message, line by line. And specifically what he said was, this is what it is. It's going to be, he didn't say cancer, but I knew what that meant. And that it was going to be bad. He prepared me for that. And that it was going to be worth it on the other side. But he told me to think of this like any other calling or any other mission. And what I think is so funny about it was the last line, which was, I felt that he said, it's just something else that you have to say yes to, which, like, thinking back on it now, I didn't really get a choice to say yes or no, but now I know what he meant, because I don't get a choice to say yes to cancer, but I get a choice to say yes to advocacy and to education and to loving people, and hoping this never happens to anyone else, although it will, but to help them along the path. I've had some friends that came forward that they had genetic mutations that put them at a higher risk for breast cancer that I didn't know that they were struggling with, and they hadn't taken it seriously, or as seriously as they should have, and I was like, no, we have to get you in your scans now. And we did, and she has 2 masses. But we found those early. I don't know how long she would have waited. Like, that's God right there, just taking care of things and saving lives already, I feel like.
So this is giving you like a sense of purpose.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I felt like I already had my sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And I like knew what I was doing. I was in my groove. I felt like I had my own ministry through what I do over here. I know that sounds funny. We can talk about that in a little bit if you want. But yeah, it's a totally different sense of purpose.
Yeah. I think a lot of times people, the reason I asked that and mentioned that about purpose, I think a lot of times people have this misconception about like purpose or ministry is this thing that you do if you like work for a church or if you like serve. It's like only confined to like a church building. And I think it's really interesting that you talk about your job giving you a sense of purpose and like a ministry, but even this, as you're going through this, that's
it's a new ministry.
Yeah.
It's a new calling, which is what he said.
Yeah. Are there specific ways that people can pray for you in your ministry? Like, I feel a little weird saying that, but it's like kind of taking that what you've said.
So I don't know the answer to how you can pray for me. Just that I have enough time to do what I need to do, and there are 3 things that I've kind of written down as like my, mostly 2, and I added a 3rd one later, but from the beginning, there were 2 things that I felt like I wanted to happen as a result of this, or maybe were like divinely inspired to happen. And the first was that young men and women, all men and women would, like I said, awaken to their health risk and not put off their yearly checkups, not put off their warning signs, finally stop smoking cigarettes and not be a casual restaurant smoker like most of us, including me, were. Quit drinking alcohol, binge drinking, drinking alcohol in general more than twice a week, more than 3 drinks once or twice a week puts you at a high risk for cancer, very high risk for breast cancer. Things that we consider normal, but we don't know are putting us at a risk. And I wanted women to start asking questions about the birth control that they're on, or when should I get pregnant? Does that decrease my risk of breast cancer? Because it does. Should I breastfeed? Because that will decrease your chance of breast cancer. A lot of us don't know that, like they're not teaching us that. And those are questions that I wish that we didn't have to ask, that were being told to us, but we just need to be more educated on that. So pray for that. And also, and most importantly to me, what I don't want to happen from this, especially with my loved ones, is that they take what has happened to me and they internalize it and they resent God for it, because that's not what it's about. And I want it to point other people towards God's goodness, because he's always been faithful to me. He is still faithful to me, and I know that he will be. And I know that, like, this is part of a bigger plan. I keep thinking about the verse from John, greater love hath no man than this, that a man would lay down his life for his brothers. Like, is that not what I'm doing here? Really? And I'm honored for the task at hand. I told you I had three prayers. The third one is, I'm a person in recovery. I said that earlier, but I was alcoholic for 12 years of my life, and I've been sober since May 30th of 2018, so almost 3 years. And I've learned that it's not an easy thing to navigate in the healthcare system. I never abused prescription meds or narcotics, but I also know how my disease works and how the enemy works, and I'm not interested in starting that. And I've had pain meds pushed on me, and if I didn't know that I had the option to tell people no, that I didn't want them, I'm not sure that a lot of my, I say employees, that's part of my ministry here, is I employ a lot of recovering addicts and alcoholics and help them get back on their feet. They help me stay on my feet. And I kept thinking about them, and like, would they have known to say no to those and known that they didn't have to take them? And I can see how it would be very difficult for a person in recovery to navigate the situation that I'm in and stay clean. So prayers for our recovery community and that too.
Yeah. I was going to sort of end by asking, like, if you had anything to tell people or whatever, but it feels like the whole time, even like when I asked you what you pray for, is like this is like my message. I think it's really powerful, the way God has used a situation that is undoubtedly difficult and continues to shape you and other people through it. There's something really powerful about that. And
yeah, definitely.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us. I think all of us will be forever grateful for you telling us this and talking through it with us.
Thank you. Thanks for letting me share.
Yeah.
Alex asked me, and I said yes before I even thought about it, just because I knew.
Yeah.
Okay, here it is. It's beginning.
Yeah.
Time to start talking about it.